From the New York Post, over 1,000 African migrants swarm New York City's City Hall over supposedly falsely promised green cards. I wonder if they have images here. They do. Ashley St. Clair posted this on Twitter. You can see it here. 1,300. 250 of them got into City Hall. They were, according to this article, promised green cards and work permits. I look at this, and these are criminal aliens. The reason we know that most of them, not all, but most of them are likely criminal aliens is that they were seeking green cards. So they're not here legally. Perhaps some of them may be on tourist visas. I don't know. I think the average American starts to look at this stuff, and you have to realize, well, I shouldn't say it this way because I hope Donald Trump wins and I hope it's not the case. But I think many people may start to believe there is no government. The border is wide open. National Guard was attacked, and they still allowed these people into the country. The federal government is trying with all of their might to bring in criminal aliens in defiance of the law, of state law and federal law. What is the purpose of government? Of, for, and by the people. We have a constitution. The federal government is supposed to serve the people. It is supposed to be comprised of the people to protect us, to help us maintain order, but it's supposed to be fairly weak. State government should be doing the same thing. What do we have now? The federal government is doing everything in its power to destroy the fabric of this country and the lives of its constituents, the lives of the people who are supposedly making the government up. They allowed how many millions in the past few years? What is it like?
They're saying 7, but it's probably higher.
Those are the ones that we know about, the encounters.
You hear 7 to 10, but it's
7
must
to 10
be more.
million non-citizens.
Yeah, that's what I'm also hearing.
And the thing that I think, too, that's crazy about this is, Tim, is because, my family founded a Fortune 500 home building company. And everybody always asks me, how are housing companies and how are all these houses so expensive these days? Well, partially it's because of all this immigration, in my opinion. Because what happens is you have a lot of these lower income immigrants come into the country. They take up the housing stock. They take up the demand. They push up prices. I think this is also going to cause inflation with regard to housing. And to your point, when you don't enforce the laws and you allow people to come in, and I'm not saying one thing or the other, I'm just saying the facts of supply and demand are, if you have the same amount of supply or lower supply, which you have for housing, and you have greater demand, you're going to see also the cost of goods, in my opinion, go up in this country and continue to go up, specifically housing.
This is something that the immigration minister in New Zealand just talked about. New Zealand is a very, very small country anyways, and they were actually talking about restricting legal immigration, restricting short-term work visas. I'm looking at Chris because he added to my article. I'm like, remember when this happened?
Yeah.
And they were saying, we can't just have, and the number they were saying is like 170,000 people come to the country because we can't absorb them. Our economy can't handle it. We don't have the housing. The other thing that bothers me a lot about when we talk about migration is that the government uses migration as this way to say like, oh, look, it's solving all these problems that we are not willing to address. So one of the things that comes up a lot with birth rate is that the American birth rate is declining. There's a lot of reasons for that. Some of it's cultural attitude. Some of it is that millennials are like, I can't afford this. But instead, you'll see these articles about birth rate declining, and then you'll have the same organization say, but don't worry because, migration helps us. So we're not in crisis because rather than encouraging and helping American families have their own children, we're just bringing in new people who aren't from here and may not even be here legally. Like they act like this is a solution to problems when actually they could offer, child tax care credits. They could do all kinds of things, but instead they're like, it's just easier for us to replace you. And that sounds horrible to me. Like that doesn't sound like a government that rallies around and behind its people.
Well, yeah, they hate us.
Yeah, they hate us.
They hate our guts.
What?
Your water, your pipes in your city full of lead. Your auto manufacturing's being stripped away from you. Jobs are collapsing. The value of the dollar is collapsing. Foreign wars that have nothing to do with the United States that you don't even understand. None of us really do.
Can't buy a house.
Can't buy a house, can't afford food, it's getting worse. And what does your government do for you? They allow millions of people to illegally enter the country, come to your communities, take over your public centers, demand from you. Here, I got a tweet for you. Maud Marin says, yesterday my eldest son's soccer team could not play one of their scheduled games because migrants refused to leave the field the league had permits for. Even after the cops came and told them they needed to leave, finally, the ref said it was too late for the game to start and left. 2 teams of high school boys in uniform with their coaches present and a valid permit could not play a soccer match in New York City because our city has become lawless. Not the biggest issue or problem, but so ugly and so diminishing to the quality of life. Elon Musk responds, this will get much worse. It will. And so this is my fear. It's not so much that people on the right will start to believe there's no government. It's that the government has effectively fled. Like it's not even a question of whether you want to believe in government or not. It really just feels like there isn't one. Mm-hmm. It's just Biden's doing what he wants. I'll say it again. The Titanic has hit the iceberg, and the powerful elites are pulling as much of the fine china as they can as they run to the lifeboats. There's a couple big stories. The price of gold has jumped quite a bit. I think maybe like $400 in the past few months. And reports that ultra wealthy Americans have started purchasing passports in huge numbers, more than we've seen before. Well, I forgot what they're calling them, but they're like emergency secondary passports for other countries, because the fear is it's collapsing.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people like to buy their St. Kitts and Nevis passport. I think it costs, I don't know what it costs now, but I remember someone told me that they bought one for $50K back in the day. A lot of people are going. El Salvador has passports available for people who want to invest in the country, and a lot of people are buying passports, secondary citizenship, because they're watching what's happening here. And the people with money, what are they doing? They're building bunkers. It's funny when I get these Instagram ads for these. Have you seen them? The big underground bunkers.
They're even doing it now on Fox News. Have you seen it? Not the bunkers, but a lot of the food and all those kind of things. Yeah, I used to hear a lot of wealthy people talk about it. Now it's becoming mainstream.
How does all this feel to you, though? Because you have a young family. I mean, so does our executive editor over there. Like, when you guys watch these videos, do you feel scared for your kids, or do you feel like more empowered to do something about it? What's the impact?
I feel more empowered to come on here, and do something about it. I mean, I love helping people online, and we help immigrants. We help everybody. But at some point, you have to stand up for yourself. And when you've got all of these people coming in, these people on the screen, where are they all going to live?
That's the problem. Yeah. They're living in shelters. And the hearing was on the treatment of the migrants at shelters. The stuff, so there's some behind the scenes stuff that hasn't been made public yet, that some journalists are working on that I can't say too much about. But let me just say that I think most people assume it's worse than we realize, that this is surface level news. But what's going on behind the scenes is probably substantially worse. I'm talking, we got the reports out of Chicago of tuberculosis, of mumps. Yeah. During Occupy Wall Street, several women were raped. And the occupiers told everyone, do not report this. We will take care of it. And they told the women who had been raped not to tell anybody, because if the press found out, it would hurt their cause. Take that into consideration when you see what's going on with this stuff, and imagine what's going on in these cities and these shelters that they're not telling you about.
Yeah, this is really dismaying, so I'd like to add an additional black pill on top of it. Because there was one piece of coverage today that I thought was just the perfect encapsulation of this situation and where we're kind of at right now. It's Savannah Hernandez. Did you guys see her video?
No.
Okay, so she's on the ground in NYC today, and she saw a guy with a NYC employee badge on. And he looks around at City Hall and he goes, what's happening here? And she goes, well, these are all illegal immigrants. And he said, that's a mean thing to say. And she was like, wait, what do you mean? And he like ran away. Like, that's all he had. Like, you would think that footage like this and pictures like this would be sobering to anybody that has some scrap of a brain left.
It's funny.
But it's not.
Someone tweeted something where
Don't
they
you
were
think
like,
a majority of people, though, are uncomfortable with this?
Well, I mean, this guy isn't, and he's not the only bozo in New York City that's
He
just
is.
that clueless.
They're just scared. They're in a cult. If you speak out, you lose your job, you're fired. And so they're all just saying what they think needs to be said.
Mm-hmm. So they'll say that till they die?
Until they're told by the quote unquote right side of history. This is why when that OnlyFans porn star said, I found God and I'm quitting, I'm like, good. I don't care if she's honest or not. Maybe she's grifting. But when normies decide, like porn stars decide, hey, the real grift is finding God and convincing. It reminds me of that South Park episode where Cartman's like, Christian music is the path towards getting a platinum record because Christians will buy whatever. And my point is, once grifters are like, the real money is here, then the culture shifts in that direction because they feel that is the right side of history. So that's a good sign. Somebody tweeted something funny where they were like, I'm really worried about what's going on. I've been feeling concerned about the country. And then the response from their friend was, you've been watching too much Tim Pool. And I thought it was funny. But the funny thing about it is, it actually is more surprising to me that there are people who think nothing is wrong. They don't watch TikTok. How many viral TikToks are there of people being like, I can't pay my bills anymore. I can't afford to live. I can't feed my kids.
Well, we see it on Twitter every day.
Every single day. And there are people who are like, no, everything's fine. It's like, have you seen the cost of food? Have you seen the cost of rent? Have you seen the cost of homes? Like, young people are living in cubicles. And there are people who plug their ears, close their eyes, say, la, 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 stop listening to these podcasts. They're wrong. They're wrong. Everything's fine. Go touch grass. Go touch grass. It's like, bro, I went and touched grass and I met a bunch of people who were complaining they couldn't eat. That's what I find when I go outside.
Those soccer kids wanted to touch the grass, but they couldn't.
They weren't allowed.
Right.
Well, I mean, yeah. So you're seeing all that. Like, what do you see on X with people talking about their struggles?
Well, we have 3 million what I call teammates, which are followers, and across the 3 million people, basically people retweet when I say, "Hey, do you need help with groceries? Do you need help with medicine, etc.?" And it kind of goes viral, Tim. And what happens is many days we get 30 to over 100,000 replies. What I've seen in the last, let's call it 5 years or so, has been what started out was people needing help and people who wouldn't want free money, right? Who doesn't want free money? Everyone wants free money these days, but it's like, okay, now these days, people, it's not even free money. Now it's people need to survive. And what you could used to buy for a meal for $5 or $10, now you need $20 or $30 to go do it. And so our ability to affect people and help people on Twitter is limited because our resources only go so far. And I think this is the quiet effect of inflation, as you're seeing poverty become more mainstream. And, they talk about the middle class. The middle class in many ways is so far gone, in my opinion, when you have to spend $20, $30 in order to afford a meal.
Yeah. I think that doesn't. There was a video I saw a clip of today, a woman saying that her son was asking her, like, when are you going to go to the store? And she was like, I have $90 right now. Like, it's a very stressful time for a lot of people. And I think it is interesting that you are seeing such engagement with the work that you're doing. People are wanting to help others, even though I'm sure they're also feeling that financial burden.
They are, yes. People come together and they donate and they chip in, and that's been the viral, exciting thing of it. But Tim, to answer your question, the last 3-4 years, it's just gotten worse, and it's inflation. I mean, that to me, I think is going to be the biggest issue of this election, or it should be, because I think that immigration also causes that.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's inflation, immigration, and a sense of geopolitical instability that's really going to drive people to the borders. I mean, so much of what I see right now is the left saying abortion is the #1 issue this year. You see, AP has a permanent place on their website for like, here's abortion news. But when you talk to the average American voter, it's, I need to pay my bills. I want to try and buy a house one day. I don't want my relatives to be sent abroad to wars I don't want to fight in.
I think about these things with these wars and stuff too, about this Ukraine thing and even the Israeli conflict, is you look at on Twitter, people are dying every day. They can't afford insulin. They can't afford cancer treatment. I mean, one of the things we do with Twitter Philanthropy, X Philanthropy now, is we pay for groceries for people who are going through chemo. I mean, people can't afford groceries. They have to be out of work when they have chemo. I mean, in my opinion, this is where the resources should be going. And unfortunately or fortunately, that's why we have to do what we have to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, to your point about, the abortion issue, we just sent our field reporter Alad to a Trump rally in Pennsylvania, and he was talking to Trump supporters that were there, and like he would bring up the abortion issue, and for the most part, they didn't really want to talk about it. Like there was one guy that was just like, I'm not an abortion guy. Look, our election was stolen. The next one is going to be stolen. I mean, like,
he's like, we have to stay on topic.
Yeah. And like he would ask them follow-up questions, and I just sensed a general kind of apathy toward that whole issue because there are more pressing issues that are really impacting people's day-to-day lives.
Right. If you can't pay your medical bills and you can't pay it for groceries, you can't really talk about other things.
These
right?
hypotheticals mean nothing.
And philosophical, ethical debates, while there is a place for them, and I know this abortion in particular is an important issue for a lot of conservatives. If you are struggling to make ends meet, you are needing to stop that issue first, right? You need to triage where the biggest issue is. Which again, I think only works in Trump's favor this election cycle. I don't think it works in Biden's favor. That's why, our beloved Vice President Kamala Harris is not currently on an anti-inflation tour. She's on a national abortion speaking tour.
That's absolutely wild.
Isn't that crazy?
It just seems like, and unfortunately, this was similar in 2019 and 2020. Moody's Analytics was giving Trump this amazing projection for a victory in 2020, and then COVID And it made everything very different. Looking at what's going on right now, I think if you track historical precedent, it would be insane to think Trump could lose. With the rate of inflation, with mass migration, these are huge issues. People can't afford to eat. I mean, historically, we don't really have TikTok and Instagram and X. But now we're seeing these videos pop up all day, every day of people being like, I can't afford to live this way. What's going on? The only thing I can say, though, is why I don't know, is that somehow every bellwether district went for Trump, but Trump still lost. The bellwethers that get it right every time. For some reason, Trump still ended up losing. It's very strange how that could happen. And so with that anomaly, I have to wonder what will happen this time around in November that Republicans are not prepared for. And they're probably not.
Yeah, I feel like this year is only going to have more plot twists as we go on.
And it's going to be a long road in November.
It's going to be a long road. And yeah. I think, again, so one of Nikki Haley's, she gave that speech before she dropped out saying, I'm not going to drop out no matter what happens in South Carolina. She, and to her credit, she dropped out after Super Tuesday. She said, if I left the race now, this would be the longest general election in American history. And I think in some ways that's to the American people's benefits. I always say it's because we should be pressing both leaders more intensely about who they're going to staff, like who's going to be at the head of different agencies and who's going to be in the cabinet and stuff like that. But I also think it lets all of the issues simmer on a national stage in a little bit longer, right? Every time you go to the grocery store and it's more expensive, or I just saw the other day that car insurance was up by 26% nationally. Yeah. Like every time you have to pay a bill as we drive towards the election, you have to think very seriously between, do I want the status quo, which is Joe Biden, or do I want something else, which is Trump?
Look, it's fascinating to me that the Democratic Party outright says you should have less stuff. They're screaming in your face, there's too many people, you shouldn't have kids, there's too much pollution, there's too much carbon, you shouldn't be driving. And then Trump is of the party that says, drill, baby, drill.
The craziest thing is on Twitter, sometimes I'll just test some things out there because I have this audience, as I said, that's 50% Democrats, 50% Republicans. And I'll tweet out something innocuous like, it's great to have children, or you should consider having children. And just the most vile tweets in the entire world. And I don't know what political ideology people are who are saying this. I have an idea. But,
yeah, strong guess.
but I just can't believe how pissed people get when you and I say fairly innocent stuff too. Yeah. Like you should just maybe have more kids. Having kids will make you happy. Kids are a great source of joy. And then all of a sudden they're like, well, isn't my Pilates class a source of joy, or isn't my whatever? And it's like,
I don't think you can compare those two things though, like different types of joy, my friend.
I mean? Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.